Hey guys, it's Catfish here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to wipe out enemy level 6 squads consistently in PUBG Mobile Metro. As time goes on, there will be more and more level 6 squads playing this game mode because there will be more time for newer players to loot up and get better equipment, and for good players to be able to flesh out their tactics and refine them. Rushing an enemy with level 6 vests is no longer an advisable strategy because everyone's going to have level 6, and so level 6 vests are going to become the new norm, and so there's going to have to be some new tactics in place to help you raise your chance of success. So in this first clip here, we spawn in the northern side of the second map, the one with the Fort Rosshawk, and instead of rushing barracks right away, we're going to try to flank around on the upper side, the northern side of barracks. The idea is that we want to listen to the sound of bots to know where the enemies are located. Because if the bots don't shoot, that means there's no enemies nearby. But if there are bots that are shooting, you can somewhat look at which bot is shooting to kind of semi-triangulate the enemy team's location. So that is exactly what we're doing now. We're going to go to the right side of this hill here to try to flank the enemy. And, we're listening for gunshots, and we do hear some. And so now we know there's enemies either in barracks or around barracks. So the idea is now we know that there are enemies in barracks for sure. The best thing to do is to appear on the right side of this hill to get a flanking shot. If we can knock at least 2 enemy players, then we can go in for the kill. So right there, that's one enemy. And we get the knock. And I instruct my squad to finish them off. And now, instead of rushing in, we're going to remain in this position to spy out the enemy's locations before pushing in blindly. The objective is that we don't know where the enemy team is. I mark some possible locations where enemy team can come from, including that right entrance right there. But the enemy can also come out from the left side entrance. At this point, we also don't know if an enemy will decide to take a sniper's position in that tall tower on the right side of barracks. So we also have to be careful here because it's very easy to get knocked, especially if the enemy is using pink weapons. So I'm currently staring at the sniper tower, and yes, there is a sniper there. And so I take 2 shots, get the knock, and I instruct my team that this will be the time to push up. So this is exactly what we do. We push up to these, we push up and close the distance on the barracks because we killed one enemy player and we knocked another one. So effectively, the enemy team firepower is reduced to 50%. And if that person that I just knocked is being revived, then the enemy team's firepower is reduced down to 25% because only one person is able to shoot. One person is knocked and the other person is busy reviving, so the second person is unable to shoot. So right now, we close the distance. We try to get a flanking angle on barracks, and it's very important, do not ever enter barracks. Barracks is a very dangerous location, and if you enter barracks, you are essentially throwing away all your advantage and all your tactical strategies by dumbing yourself down into a blunt firefight. And it boils down to individual prowess and skill, and that's not the way I like to run my squad. So that sniper got the revive. So I take a few shots at him, unaware of whether that was a knock or not. But regardless, I know that we can't just run into barracks and try to rush him that way because there's so many angles and so many tents in which enemies can hide behind. So I instruct my squad that we're going to go around the outside of the perimeter of barracks to thirst this person. So that's exactly what we do. Taking advantage of the fact that the enemy is knocked right now, we are hugging the outer perimeter of barracks to try to get a flanking shot. We come up here and take note that the enemy could already be revived. So we hug this fence. I dialed down my 6x scope to 3x to make sure it's not overly magnified, and we close in for the final firefight. Enemy is in front of me. I take him out. There's an enemy upstairs that also gets taken out. I mark a possible location that the last enemy can come from, but thankfully, number 4 on my team, CV, was able to take out the final enemy, and this is how you wipe an enemy squad in a tactical manner, instead of just relying on blunt force and brute force. In this next clip here, I will demonstrate how to deal with enemy invaders. So in this particular example, we are in Fort Rosshawk, and we had just finished a boss, and usually this will be the perfect time for enemy invaders to pull up. So the best thing to do is for one person to take position in this tower, go up top, and try to spot out enemies, because it's very easy for enemies to camp on the hills directly next to Fort Rosshawk. So like this location right here that I marked is a perfect location for enemies to camp. This is also a good position for enemies to camp. So I'm just marking these locations for my team to know. Reaper, number 3, his name is Striker. He's in a really good position, camping that corner. But as you can see here, it's very easy to get knocked in this location. There's only a few trees, and enemies can easily camp this little ridge line right here, this hill that I'm standing on right now. And there's a lot of cover for the enemy, but not a lot for you. So it's very important that as you're leaving Fort Rosshawk, to always check by going onto that sniper tower and try to spot out enemy campers before leaving the premises. Alright, so in this next clip, my squad and I had just finished killing the boss in base. And an enemy squad has pulled up on us. The enemies are very scattered out. They're not very coordinated. So this allows us to get a few good knocks on the enemy here. One thing about when you're invading one of these boss locations, you want to make sure you push as a squad, because if you're spread out like this, and your teammate gets knocked, they're basically they're effectively pinned down, and sometimes it's even a death sentence for them, because when they're knocked, they can't effectively get behind cover. So make sure that when you push as a team, and when you push, you try to do it in a way so that it's not so blatantly obvious to the defending team which approach you're approaching from. So in this position, the enemy made it too clear where they are. They didn't use suppressors. Their approach was very predictable. Their cover wasn't really solid and substantial, and it's really easy to get a flanking shot on that guy's that van over there, because it's not really a good cover. Another thing about defending the rooftop is there are many, something that I want you guys to know is that there are many ways to leave, but there's only 2 ways in. So there are only 2 ways to access the roof, those 2 rooftop access stairwells, but there are many ways you can jump off in case of emergency. So right here, we hear the bot shooting, and what that means is there's an enemy nearby. So immediately, all of our attention is directed towards that location. And right here, CV spots an enemy roughly in that direction, and we marked him. And so CV takes a shot with his AWM and was able to knock him out. So usually when you're on a rooftop, you always have to be on the lookout for enemies anyways. Enemy teams is what I'm saying, not like bot enemies. Interestingly, it came to my attention, one of my clanmates revealed that if you stay on the roof long enough, multiple bosses can spawn. So what that means is, after you kill the first boss, if you wait after a certain time, the smaller bots will respawn in the school, and after they spawn, then the boss will respawn again. So when you're fighting an enemy squad, you have to be very careful that there's no boss on the roof at the same time, because then you're fighting 2 fronts. In this scenario, the enemy again made a similar mistake. Their approach was very obvious. They were very spread out, and they didn't use a very good coordination. One thing I will say, though, that when you're defending school, try to remain behind cover as possible. It is very easy to get knocked on the roof if you stand too close to an edge, or if you're standing on a wooden plank, that catwalk. It is also very easy to get knocked. Try to stay behind these metal sheets and use them for cover. Otherwise, you can also use these wooden boxes as cover, because there's a lot of potential cover you can use on school top that you should use to your maximum potential. When you're defending school, the best place to be is to be on the rooftop where the boss spawns, because the enemies have to jump over that wooden box in order to access you, right? The only other way for the enemies to hurt you is by throwing a grenade. And as long as you're if you're a little spread out and not all clustered in one location, then one grenade shouldn't, take out anyone, and it's very rare that a grenade will knock two or more people with just one grenade. So right now, we wiped the enemy squad. We're able to loot up because, the enemy was very uncoordinated, and, their approach was obvious, and we defended the school appropriately.